5 things that you must know before you go to Vietnam. So if you didn't know yet, Vietnam is a developing country. In other words, there's still, as long as, trust me, there's good people out there, but just as much as there's good people in the world, there's just as much as bad people. And here are the things you might want to consider when you step off the plane, and I did research. So I'm gonna compile it all in this 5 things that you must know before you go to Vietnam. Number 1 is taxis, right? The reality is you step off the plane and you wanna go to your destination. Well, the mode of transportation in Vietnam, if you don't know how to ride a motorcycle, you'll probably need taxis. And there's only 2 taxi companies that you should trust, and that is My Linh and Venus Sun. Those are the 2 core taxi groups that you should only vet. Because the reality is the government does not regulate taxi companies, and there's a high likelihood of them seeing you as a foreigner and charging you double the price. For example, instead of it only being 100,000 Vietnam dong, it's gonna be 200,000 to get to your destination. So when it comes to transportation, the things when I realized that the big concern for me is transportation. So you want to make sure you go with My Linh or Venus Sun. Those are the 2 taxi companies that you can trust. On top of that, using Uber and Grab, those are popular as well. Because even though I did go with Venus Sun and My Linh, the even more trap part about this is that since they look at you and tell you like you're a foreigner, you want to be able to be street smarts. In other words, if you see them going around loops or taking longer destinations, then you might want to call them out on it, or they're gonna take advantage of you. The second thing that I realized when I went to Vietnam the previous year is that there's something called the foreigner price. They see you as a foreigner, and the local markets, the shopping places the cités that you want to go to, they're gonna charge you the foreigner price. And this is very real. It doesn't matter how discriminatory it is. Like you go to certain places, for example, buying fruit, they're gonna charge you a stupid copious amount, but you need to be realized that, oh, wait a minute, that is too high. And the good thing about being in Vietnam is that you can bargain. It's called Jia Ya, which literally translates to, lowering down the price. So they offer you 200,000 for a piece of fruit, which is a ripoff to begin with, then you can keep lowering it down. So making sure that you pay for what you get. And the more likely you are to pay normal prices is around local neighborhoods. They're not gonna like rip you off. So be aware of paying foreigner prices for things. I would say scam number 3 is that I've seen this one happen on YouTube, but not see it personally in myself. Maybe it's more popular in Hanoi and not so much in Saigon, but it's something called the coconut scam, where it's pretty much a guy carrying a bamboo stick with like 2 weight thingies carrying coconuts, and he's like, hey, come here, you're a foreigner, come here, come into my trap. So they pretty much get you to carry the bamboo stick with the coconuts, and then all of a sudden you see him cut a coconut and give it to you, and now he's pretty much forcing you to pay money. Like, I guess the 4th thing when it comes to like going out to Vietnam, and like you want to try their cuisine, right? But you want to be very readily aware that Vietnamese doesn't have things like FDA or like government regulation on food products. So the chances of you getting food poisoning or your stomach isn't strong enough, because I have a weak Canadian stomach, is that you have to be aware of eating street food, especially street food, depending on the neighborhood and the location. So tip number 4, thing you must know, is that you have to be aware of getting things like food poisoning. Bring lots of Imodium, I'm not sponsored, but bring lots of stomach pain medication, and be aware of what you're eating, because you might need to make trips a lot to the washroom. Yep. And my last and final tip of things you better know before you go to Vietnam is petty theft is pretty damn high in Vietnam. I'm sure it's almost a common thing to happen. So be aware of your belongings, right? Don't have your backpack, especially if you're in a crowded place, have it like behind you, put it in front of you. Or if you're like me and you have like an anti-theft backpack, then get one of those. Vietnam is like a great country, but there is, the bad that comes with it, like government corruption, police, bribery. You'll be aware of that. Something that didn't mention in the list is that people would try to hassle you for money. Police aren't really policed there because, you know, they get paid so little, so they have to like bribe people. So if you ever get caught in a situation, the reality is they're gonna make a foreigner pay 10 to 20 to 100 to $200 to get into some sort of like, you know, get out of trouble for whatever that ticket may be. But if you look at Vietnamese traffic, right? So be aware of that. So be aware of like documentation, being aware of like people trying to bribe you. And it is a common thing, the sad part about it, in Vietnam. But those, before I go on some long tangent rant, those are the things that you better know when you go to Vietnam. Saigon, Hanoi, wherever, Ho Chi Minh City, Saigon, same thing. Wherever you go in Vietnam, those are the things that I wish I would tell myself if I had no knowledge of Vietnam. Because most people speak English there, most people are nice, they're like, oh, foreigner. So yeah, see y'all in the next one. Deuces.